Hi everybody, it's Melissa Ziobron, your state representative from the 34th District, East Hampton, East Haddam, and part of Colchester. I wanted to just take a moment to update you on some of the conversations we've had this week in the legislature. We were in session on Wednesday. We were debating a lot of different bills. Some of them were mostly technical changes that were important to agencies, but there was a moment where, frankly, I just couldn't take it anymore. The kind of conversations we are having in the face of a fiscal crisis in the state of Connecticut. As you well know, we are facing now a $5 billion budget deficit in 2018-2019, and ending this fiscal year in 2017, we may be facing the possibility of borrowing over $200 million to close the deficit. So yesterday, there was a legislator who brought out a bill that was important to her, and certainly every legislator has the right to submit any legislation they'd like. But at that exact moment, I was in the back of the Capitol cutting millions of dollars out of the Republican budget proposal to address those new revenue numbers. And frankly, at that moment, listening to the conversation, talking about lactation consultants in the state of Connecticut mandating that the agency simply put a link on their website, but yet it required legislation to do so, really just struck a nerve to me at that moment. And as the voice of the taxpayers in Connecticut and that of common sense, and it caused me to, frankly, go out on the floor, press my button, and speak out on behalf of every taxpayer in this state to say, listen, we need to prioritize our conversations at the Capitol. We need to make sure that we are talking about the realities facing Connecticut today, and that's what I did.
I rise in strong, very strong opposition to this bill. I have sat here most of the day listening to my colleagues debate bills that have some substance. Some have questioned why the need, but I have to get up at this bill. As ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, knowing my constituents are chewing their fingernails, wondering what their future is in this state with our fiscal crisis, we just spent 20 minutes talking about lactation consultants. I don't understand. Does anyone understand the crisis that we have in the state? And yet this is the bill we want to debate at 5:30 on Wednesday? Madam Speaker, we are facing a $5 billion budget deficit. $5 billion. And we want to waste our time as legislators talking about a link on a website which does not require legislation to implement. A simple phone call to the commissioner of DPH could accomplish this very easily. Not only are we facing a $5 billion deficit in 18 and 19, we are facing a real possibility, Madam Speaker, of having to borrow $200 million or more to balance this fiscal year, ending June 30th, 2017. Like you, I've been poring over the budget since 9 a.m., looking for hundreds of millions of dollars of cuts. Cuts that we don't want to put down on a piece of paper. They're hurtful. They're programs that help a lot of people in this state. So while I was back in that room looking at that list, and I saw the title of the bill we were debating, pushed a couple of my buttons, Mr. Speaker, and it still does. Not only because we have an unimaginable task ahead of us, but because, as a young mother myself, I had double mastitis infections. I understand the importance, but I didn't need a government website to help me find relief, not just for my baby, but for myself. It's a very painful process. When you have a mastitis infection, you feel like you have the flu. It's horrible. If any other of my female colleagues have been through it, I know that feeling. It is very painful. It's almost more painful when emotionally you have to make the decision that you just can't breastfeed and you have to bottle feed your baby, and that's okay. My experience with lactation consultants was very negative. But my baby was fine. My daughter now is 22 years old, perfectly fine. But I am passionate and I am upset that we are having this debate here today It's not because I think that this bill is horrible. It's about priorities. Priorities. The idea that I have to go home to my district and tell them that we were debating a breastfeeding lactation bill while I have constituents who are thinking about putting a for sale sign in their yard, who don't know if their kids are going to come back to Connecticut to live here because they can't afford it, because we have businesses who are saying, they want to raise taxes again? Guess I'm going to have to move my business somewhere else. And Mr. Speaker, you and I looked at each other in the eyes this morning, and we knew how important our jobs are. I take it very seriously. So when I get passionate in this room, it is for a good reason. It is for a good reason, Mr. Speaker. We have a lot of problems, and talking about lactation consultants for 65 minutes shouldn't be one of them. Thank you very much.
So yes, it was maybe a little bit more passionate than I normally am on the floor, and some people maybe even were a little offended, especially some legislator friends of mine on the other side of the aisle. But it was necessary to put a pause button and do a reality check in the chamber that day. That's what I continue to do every day at the Capitol. I do that because we need to have common sense back in our government when we're facing these kinds of budget crises. You can count on me to continue to do that, to continue to have those frank conversations, willing to put myself out there, and I hope that you'll continue to support me in those efforts over the next 6 weeks when we finally bring forward a budget that is balanced, hopefully very soon, so that our municipalities can finally know what they're facing in their local decision making and how it affects your property taxes. So continue to keep updated, CT House 34. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or Facebook. And if you have any questions, I hope to hear from you. Thanks a lot.